Hey, everybody. Welcome to MS Confidential, a monthly webcast series consisting of candid conversations about navigating the chaos of living with multiple sclerosis. My name is Lisa, and I'll be here to help with any questions you want to ask our regular panelists. So please feel free to do so by placing your questions in the chat box, and we'll answer them in about 20 minutes or so, give or take a few. Because this conversation is meant to be candid and unfiltered, it also means sometimes there's colorful language and could get intense. Usually it's pretty funny though. So at any rate, I'm going to introduce our regular group of panelists or conversationalists, which I would like to say. First, we have Jessica Oler, who is a conceptual artist and scholar living in Davis, California, and she was diagnosed in 2012 with relapsing remitting MS. And then we also have Dr. Annie Brewster joining us from the Boston area of Massachusetts. She is the founder of Health Story Collaborative and has a new book coming out in just a few weeks about the healing power of stories. And she has been living with relapsing remitting MS for 20 years now. We also have Kyle Cronick, who is coming to us from Asheville, North Carolina. And Kyle's been living with progressive MS for 10 years. He's very open and honest, and he shares his journey with MS pretty regularly, almost daily sometimes, in hopes of reaching others living with similar circumstances. And he does that primarily on social media. And then, of course, we have Elizabeth Jameson, who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. She's been using her art, writing, and speaking engagements to convey and further illuminate the universal human experience of chronic illness and disability. And she has been living with MS for well over 20 years. So tonight we're going to talk about anxiety and specifically health anxiety, which is a topic that millions of Americans deal with, especially with the onset of COVID almost 2 years ago. And it's weird to say 2 years ago. But concerns about health and constantly shifting day-to-day life came to the forefront for all types and ages of people, which of course for people living with chronic illness is not new. But because of COVID, it provided just one more layer of diagnosis to think about and another pivot point to the myriad of pivot points that people living with MS have to deal with. So I know this is especially true for Elizabeth. And I'm going to start with her because Elizabeth recently received a positive COVID result and had a rather intense experience that she had just a little while ago. Elizabeth, do you want to tell us about that?
Well, I had the luxury joy of being diagnosed with COVID, and I'm being facetious in saying that. And it was so interesting. I had to go in the emergency room because of a different issue, which is the UTI, which is really painful. And I had to go in the emergency room, not because of COVID symptoms. And I thought, oh, as I was sitting in the waiting room, I was looking at all the people in the waiting room and I was seeing, what is my relationship to COVID? What is my relationship to my bladder infection? What is my relationship to the people around me? And I was thinking, I was really being curious about who am I? Is my main concern my MS? Is my main concern the contagion, COVID? And I was thinking, they're all part of me. And I think I really was trying to relax, knowing that shit's gonna happen, and just embracing all the things, including COVID. That's a momentary experience, let me tell you. When I was in pain, I was not thinking about embracing illness for sure. I was mainly upset and dealing with the pain. I'm not. I'm just saying there are momentary times when I can relax to the human experience of not being a perfect body. So that's my goal this year. It's really trying to figure out what is my relationship or relationships to illness. But to me, it's all there are many emotions depending on how sick you are, how intense you are. And when I talked before as MS is my friend, when I was in the emergency room, I was saying, what in the world? I was saying, what a jerk I am. I mean, I thought, oh my God, I hope no one remembers me saying MS is my friend. And that was part of what I thought. The other part of me thought, oh, I'm going to embrace everything. So, I just had to laugh at myself because part of me was really wonderful and mellow and so accepting. And another part of me said, "You're ridiculous, Elizabeth. It's like I am not relaxed. I'm anxious and I'm worried and I hate this." So just a variety of feelings. And basically, the main anxiety is I can't control anything. And that's the problem with life is you can't control anything. So I can't control my bladder infection or the fact I have COVID, something I was so worried about. I think the bladder infection is much worse than COVID, this current rendition of COVID. So it's so interesting how we can digest all these experiences. And Jessica, who's going to talk later today, she was in the emergency room. I thought, oh, interesting. She was in the emergency room with a sprained ankle. And to me, this is painful as a bladder infection. And who cares about MS? When you have a twisted ankle, forget MS. It's just life is shitty. I mean, just life is filled of not awful things, but chaos. And we have to live with it somehow and practice accepting it for a second, not more than a second, probably. Anyway, these are all the thoughts that keep rummaging around my mind. But I thought of you, Jessica, thinking, I'm here for a blood infection. You're in for the sprained ankle, and then all the people in the emergency are are uh, involved in all sorts of things, and just life.
Elizabeth, when you were in the emergency room, did you know you had COVID yet, or did you not?
I did. I did. What happened was I have a indwelling catheter, and it came out, which means you need to immediately get it back in. If not, you have to go into surgery. And no one would see me because I had COVID. My doctor wouldn't see me. The emergency room, I'm sorry, the on-call doctors wouldn't see me because I had COVID. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? They said, well, go to the emergency room. So I spent 3.5 hours waiting for the emergency room doctor to replace my catheter. So, and one thing was so interesting. They made everyone who had COVID wear a yellow mask on top of the mask. You couldn't go in the hospital without a cloth mask or a mask, any kind of mask. And then if you had COVID, you had to wear a yellow mask on top. So it's like Oh my God, it's Scarlet Letter.
Very
So,
Scarlet.
and they divided the waiting room with a yellow mask means you're the awful person, not awful person, but the person you don't want to be anything near with. And it was so interesting psychologically to be
Definitely.
segregated that way. And I
Yeah.
understood why it made sense for the staff and patients. I'm not arguing about that, but it was so weird to be the person with the Scarlet Letter.
Mhm.
No, wasn't in for COVID symptoms.
Well,
Hmm.
and not to mention, I'm just going to throw one more thing in there. Weren't you sitting, like, it sounded like not only were you there, you know, and separated because you had COVID, but there weren't a whole lot of space considerations given for those who did have COVID,
Oh
right?
my God. It was, if you didn't have COVID before you came to emergency room, you had it afterwards because they were all, people were
Definitely.
coughing and you're sitting right. I mean, it's a packed waiting room and everyone's coughing, sneezing,
Ay, ay,
and
ay.
exchanging bacteria. So the last place you want to go is the emergency room if you're
This
worried
is
about
true.
COVID.
That
And
is
my
very
husband and
true.
I started laughing hysterically as one poor woman kept coughing on me. Her daughter sat behind her so she wouldn't get COVID. And she had positioned the mother right to my face. So she kept coughing at me, and I'm in a wheelchair, so I couldn't move. So it
Oh,
was hysterical.
That's
So I
awful.
just couldn't stop laughing of the absurdity of trying to control anything in my life. It's accepting lack of control.
Mhm.
Jessica, I'm going to jump to you only because we were talking, Elizabeth was talking about the emergency room and she mentioned you. So you
okay.
had told me a little bit that it felt or feels in some ways, and you can explain it, like being newly diagnosed. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I remember, I believe it was in 2020, when everything first broke out. With the toilet paper situation. And let me just say, I take this about COVID very seriously. I don't want anyone to think that I don't. I absolutely do. I want to preface it. Anyway, so I can remember being at my parents' house and everything was chaos. On the news, it was chaos. People were going to the stores and buying all the toilet paper. Everyone was freaking out, rightfully. And I remember feeling just like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, I remember feeling like annoyed because it reminded me of when I was first diagnosed. Feeling like, because I was in many ways, because I was just diagnosed with a chronic illness, I was just drowned in chaos. And I was succumbed, again, if I haven't been saying that right, whatever, with rightful fear. So I behaved chaotically. And it just felt so like, y'all are tripping. I've done this before. Like, I get it. This is absolutely horrifying, but it just feels like I've done this. And it's like, well, here I am. I don't know. Does that sound crazy? If I said that and it didn't make any sense, I'm sorry.
Well, it sounded a little bit like you were having a deja vu experience almost.
All of this has been very deja vu. and mind you, again, I take this very seriously. I'm not out here nonchalant
Right.
day at all. It's not at all. It just feels like, oh my gosh, like I understand. I know that level of freaking out because it is that bad, because it is that scary, because it feels so uncomfortable. I'm like, I know that.
Does that make it better or worse? That's what I want to know.
You know, that's a good question. I don't honestly, it's like I can quickly say, oh, I've been there, done that, so therefore it's easy. But actually, I think like in my subconscious, it scares the shit out of me because I'm like, I can't really do anything about it. All I can really do is my due diligence and wear my mask correctly, and I'm vaccinated and do other things that I feel are going to keep myself and other people around me, hopefully, as safe as possible. So I don't know. I don't know if it's giving me extra wisdom per se. I think that, you know, I have other friends who are also living with very serious health elements, and we have that commonality of how we kind of view the world and how we move in the world. Having already lived with this reality and what we've learned and haven't learned and what we're learning from it, but I don't know, but it does cause me anxiety. I absolutely do not want to test positive because it does scare me. So I'm like, I don't know what my body will do because I have MS. So I don't know. It's just like the second time around and watching everyone else move how they move. And I'm like, I know why you're, except I seem to understand why you're doing A, B, and C. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my little story.
Jessica, have you learned anything from your experience?
Post-COVID, like since the pandemic?
The whole experience.
I've learned.
You can say you haven't learned anything. It's okay.
I was thinking like, have I learned anything? You know, I mean, I don't know. I've learned, I don't know, that this is life. And I know it sounds kind of obnoxiously cliche, but I don't know. One day you don't have MS and the next day you do. One day you're living life how you're living it, and the next day there's a global pandemic happening. Right. Like
Right. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
There's no answer.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's right. That's great.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about your experience of, you know, watching people around you, you know, go into panic mode and whatever. And then Kyle, you told me that your source of anxiety also came from other people in a different way.
Oh yeah.
But can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's other people for sure. I live in the South, and it's about a 50-50 split on people that take it seriously and people that don't. So I could be, I don't know how people can, in the time of a global pandemic, deny that it is even in existence and just claiming it's political and it's not real. And then other people also, I take some disease modifying therapies and they are immunosuppressive. And somebody said to me, "Oh, you're just a sitting duck." I was like, no, no. So yeah, my source of anxiety has been entirely other people. I don't really go out these days. I'm home all the time, doing school all the time, so I'm not going to be exposed to COVID. That's good. Another source of my anxieties, though, again, other people. Before the pandemic, I used to be out around the world connecting with so many people, with friends, with family, with strangers every day. And I really rely on that connection. And then all of a sudden it was just gone, all of it. And then I got to figure out where I'm going to get that connection from. So it has been a mixed bag. There is no easy answer, really.
With anxiety.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to say too, I think sometimes, and I'm including myself in this, those of us who are able-bodied and quote unquote normally healthy, don't understand the implications of,
Indeed.
or I think COVID provided an opportunity for lots of us to go, holy moly, like if I'm not careful and if I'm not vigilant all the time, then it could affect my life even more so than it already has with shutdowns and whatever. And for me, that was illuminating. And when you said that, somebody told you, sorry, not laughing at the situation, it just galls me that you're a sitting duck. I mean,
Yeah.
that would, for me, I think,
Ouch.
yeah, well, not only that, but create more anxiety. Like, am I a sitting duck?
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, I have not thought about that. So thanks.
And then on the flip side, we have Annie, who was telling me about her feeling invincible and the delusions that she's had to maybe put herself in order to do her job and live her life. Annie, can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I mean, I know I'm not really invincible, but I did say that I have an invincibility complex. I do think sometimes it's a survival tool. I go into things just being like, I'm good, I got this, I'm gonna be fine. It's all about survival. And my job has required, because I work in urgent care and I've been doing COVID cares for 2 years straight, that I have to go into it every day with some degree of denial. I am very safe when I'm there, right? So my strategy is sort of like, yes, there's so much of this that we can't control, but what can we control? And work is a very controlled environment. So I, have all the PPE and there's lots of infection protocols in place, but it is anxiety provoking every day to go in there. And so there is, for survival, I sort of, have had to, well, at the outset, juggle like, okay, as a person with MS, am I more vulnerable? Can I do this work? Talk to my neurologist. I did go through it in a logical way and decided, yes, if I'm careful. But still, there's an element of serious anxiety in there if I like let myself go there. But I think my survival technique is to be like, I'm going to be fine. I'm good. I got this. I'm going to be fine, which is delusional in a way, but I am careful. It's not like I'm just throwing it all to the wind. So I think there's that. I mean, I think my work life makes it I am anxious, but it's also helpful to have something concrete to do. But I'll tell you, like this new Omicron variant, like in the work part of my life feels just like a bad joke. It's like, are you serious? Like more of this? Okay, so I'm exhausted by that. And just like listening to all of you talk, I think the thing that was coming into my mind is just like the divisiveness of this is what makes me sad. How it's
Sure.
Yeah, and how it's separating all of us in so many ways, just like whether it's like politically or whether it's just from our friends because we don't feel safe being around people, or even in my work, my patient encounters now, I'm like, I am like in a hazmat suit basically, and there's no like touch and it's just very separate. There's all this separation, and that's what really makes me feel the saddest. Like, how are we going to get that back? And is that anxiety? Yeah, that's kind of anxiety. I'm anxious about that. I've been sort of cocooning into myself a lot more because that's what feels safe. But yeah, it's that separation that for me, I'd say it's more feels like a sadness than an anxiety.
Yeah, I feel that.
Me too.
So someday when this is all done, whenever that day comes, I pay a lot of attention to current history and the way our culture, at least specifically Americans, behave, because that's the only thing I have. And, you know, in my observations of really trying to pay attention for the past, I would say 20 years, I've been trying to pay attention. You know, people are really vigilant when they're in it, of doing whatever they need to do. And then when it's gone, they tend to forget. And I don't know if
So
it's
quickly.
whether it's, you know, survival instinct or, like Annie's point, delusional, invincible, whatever. But my thoughts are always, okay, when this is done, I do hope that people who are quote unquote normal and healthy, like myself, remember certain things when they are around the nearly half of the population that are living with chronic illness and disability.
Mhm.
I
And
think
so I'm just
right.
curious what your thoughts are about that, what you hope people will remember, because I know that, you know, I have been super vigilant with Elizabeth and my lack of contact with her. I was supposed to do something before the holidays to come to her house, and then things happen and that didn't happen. And I'm not going to go back in there until I know that I feel comfortable and I feel like I'm not bringing anything in. And so because I work with her so much, that for me, it's never going to go away, I don't think. But I think a lot of people do have selective memory about things. And so I'm just curious what you all think or hope will remain.
You know, I wish I could say there was something that I hope remains, but I don't think we're there yet. Like what I'd love to say is like, we all need to think more collectively.
Mhm.
But I don't think as a culture, we do that very well. And I don't think even being pushed in this pandemic has pushed us to do that. I think we are terrible at that as a culture. And that I think maybe I'd say as people living with chronic illness that we have maybe we're more able to think collectively because we've kind of been knocked down. I don't know, maybe I'm making that up, but that we have have that experience of knowing what it's like to be knocked down. And maybe,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's like whatever you just said, Lisa, like people often don't think about what they need to do or take things seriously until it's happening to them. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
They don't have the vulnerability that
Right.
all of us have, because
Mhm.
I'm very vulnerable, as
Yeah.
we all are.
Yeah.
And my caregivers, most of my caregivers don't live their life feeling vulnerable. They're young. They shouldn't feel vulnerable because they're young. And that's a very different mindset
Mhm.
than our mindset.
Mhm.
Definitely.
I think living with a chronic illness just brings out so much empathy within us. And if something else is, if the same thing has happened to somebody else, we know. I know exactly what you were saying, Annie, and I totally agree with that. I think I'm hoping that increases when this is all done. I hope empathy can, I don't know, bring us together. I don't know.
Sorry, my brain's doing negative Nancy stuff.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
think that's okay, Jess.
Say it.
It's not negative. I'm just like, it's unfortunate that people, grown adults who have, you know, like can't wear their masks over their nose and mouth simultaneously. So I'm like, can't we come together? Because clearly,
Yeah.
like
No.
a waste of paper.
Wishful thinking for sure.
That's all I'm gonna say. I can't even, and I'm not even being political. I'm talking about a regular, just a little, you can't even just nose mouth. That's
Nope.
all right.
That drives me crazy.
It drives me crazy. Not to digress. I tend to do that. Sorry, team. I'm
No, you should do
But-
that. It drives me
No.
crazy too.
Yeah.
crazy.
I figure people think what I said earlier is full of garbage. I'm talking about my relationship to COVID and
Mm,
I'm embracing it. And people think,
mhm.
oh, you're full of shit, Elizabeth. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
I'm
I am
sorry.
envious. I am envious that you can think like that. I
Yeah.
wish I could get to that.
Yeah, but
I so admire that.
Me too.
I thank you. I want to be admired, but I only deserve admiration for the 2 minutes that it happened. It's not that I live my life in joy and peacefulness, but I'm trying.
You know what I admire? What I admire, Elizabeth, is that you can see both of those things happening at the same time. You can see part of me is like embracing, and part of me is like, this is full of shit. And you can do
Right.
both of those things at the same time. That is what I admire.
Yeah, me
'Cause
too.
that's real.
Yeah, it is.
Things, but I want people to know that I'm not Miss Peaceful all the time. That's for sure.
We know that.
Yes.
But I want to laugh somehow in all this. Like when I was in the waiting room, I was in the emergency room. I just couldn't stop laughing at hysterical at this woman coughing at me because
I would
I'm
have gotten
in a
so pissed
wheelchair.
off.
It's not
Oh
her
my
fault.
gosh.
She was really sick, much sicker than me. Wasn't
Mhm.
her fault. And I couldn't move because I'm in a wheelchair. So and her daughter kept her distance from her mother. And she set her mother right in front of my face. And
Yeah.
I just said, "Oh, this is funny." I
Wow.
mean, part of it was
I'm glad you laughed, because you know what I've noticed recently, like just in everyday life, I feel like people are so angry and flying off the handle of the littlest things. It's like, I like rolled over the line of a stop sign the other day. I was not even going fast at all. And I like some biker was going past. I really did not even come close. He sat in the road and like gave me the finger and screamed at me for like at least 3 minutes straight about how I was just a horrible person. And there's just a lot of anger out there. And I just sat there and looked at him and was like, I'm really sorry. But I really didn't almost hurt him at all. But anyway, people are like ready to be just pissed.
Yeah.
A lot of
Always.
anger.
Yeah.
when I see you, Annie, it needs self-compassion because you have so much you're dealing with. So
Yeah.
I'm very compassionate for you, and I
Mhm.
want you to be compassionate, and
Yeah.
all
I'm
of us,
working on it.
because I think unless we're compassionate, we're gonna be burned out and rigid and
Totally.
not loving ourselves.
It's true. And we have to laugh like you laughed. Laughter is key.
Mhm.
But I laugh, 1 second every 2 weeks. I'm not, don't laugh all the time, that's for sure.
Mhm. I hope you can find more outlets to laugh, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I
That's
hope
what
so.
I try.
Sometimes shit is not funny at all. But like,
Wow.
I
Well,
hope, that joy can be cultivated more often in this new year for you.
I would
Totally.
say that Elizabeth and I have plenty of laughs, whether they're intentional or
Yeah.
not.
A lot of laughs. And I just want to say, like, Elizabeth, I know for so long, like, well, as we all have been nervous about this virus, but you have been very nervous because you are compromised, and
Yeah.
and you made it through, and you look
Did.
fantastic, and yay,
I made it through.
you
The
did.
thing is, if you don't, how you forget your pain, drop a hammer on your toe, and
Mm.
then you only think about your toe. So that's what happened to me. I went to emergency room with a bladder infection, so I didn't care about COVID. I was in pain
Yeah.
with my bladder infection, and I
Right.
was thinking of you with your ankle pain, and that's like dropping your hammer on your toe.
Yes. Literally. Well, okay, that didn't happen, but yes, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yes, I understand.
I'm going to do something that I normally don't do, but it's not going to be that strange since Kimberly was the host last time, is I am going to bring her in because she has a perspective. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Kimberly is one of our fabulous partners with Unfixed Media, so I'm going to bring her in so she can add her thoughts and discuss.
Yes.
Hello.
This wasn't planned, but I've been thinking so much lately about like just part of being human is we build up ourselves. We have these like process of accumulation. And all of that is kind of this sense of control. We get this degree, we get this title, we get this status, we build. But ultimately, like the people that we're drawn to, the people that we know we can trust and that we can feel empathy from, those are actually the ones that haven't done as much of the building up process as much as the stripping away. They've been chiseled away by life. And I found this amazing essay by Maria Popova, if any of you follow her. I don't remember the book that she was reflecting on, but she talks about the measure of our strength. And I was like, this is people with chronic illness here. So let me just read you the quote and you can reflect on it as the journey of people that are living with chronic illness. And that is, in the end, the measure of our strength is in how we face the fact that we are simply human, mortal, vulnerable creatures of uncommon creativity and courage, body minds born to die and to make meaning out of our fragile existence, not by clinging to the self, but by practicing our various arts of unselfing, love, creative work, transcendent communion with the rest of nature, service. And it's like, I've been like trying to memorize that paragraph because I feel like it's such a demonstration of what everybody that's facing chronic illness has to over and over go through this practice of unselfing, because we can't identify with anything because every day we wake up and it's different, right? I don't want to go as far as to say it's even different than disability, like something you're born with, or if you're born with, a limb that doesn't work, whatever. But there's so much unpredictability with chronic illness, and with a pandemic, and with all of these other things that we try to build up on ourselves to protect ourselves from the ultimate truth, which is that we're fragile. But I think this art of unselfing through love and service and creativity, those are the things that I think are being cultivated by this inability to grasp onto really who we are. So hopefully that's my wish with the pandemic, is that because everybody's getting a little tiny dose of uncertainty, not in the same way that those of us with chronic illness get, but maybe there's some acts of unselfing there too. So anyway, if anyone, if you want me to link that amazing article, I'll send it because it just blew my mind.
That
Love
sounds
that.
amazing. Yeah, I like that, unselfing. I love that.
Yeah, me
Me
too.
too.
The other thing I want to add is I think we're fascinating. I mean,
Mhm.
all of us who are dealing with our definition of who we are facing this crisis, I just think we're fascinating. I want to hear more from all of you. I mean, I love talking with each of you, and I'd like to talk to people who are watching this, because we're warriors. We don't want to be warriors. We don't self-identify as warriors, but we are. And I think that's really fascinating. And I think that what we're trying to do is just be human and laugh at each other,
Mhm.
with each other, not at each other, with each other.
Well, I also want to say that I know for Elizabeth, it's not been all scary, even though, there has been a lot of anxiety for the past 2 years, but there are other things that came about because of this pandemic and the anxiety that came with it, that were positive, or at least forward thinking in ways that maybe wouldn't have manifested had it not been for this pandemic. So once Elizabeth's done drinking her water. Do you want to share what that is?
What I have loved about COVID, one is I think my relationship with my husband has gotten much better because we have more intimacy because we're stuck at home and we like each other more or less on good days. And the other thing is I discovered Zoom, which I had discovered before COVID, but I really discovered Zoom. And my why I so wanted to create this show, MS Confidential, because MS Society had the Black MS Summit, and it was incredible. And the people from all over the country talked vulnerably about what it was like to have MS in a way that no one conference I've ever been to because of the of Zoom, and people were really able to speak from their heart without embarrassment. I thought, oh, this is great. And I found my relationships were much deeper when I discovered Zoom. So I'm really thankful for COVID for having pushed that so much on the top of my radar. And I thank COVID for MS Confidential.
That's awesome.
It's
I
awesome.
love that. I'll thank COVID for MS Confidential because this has been great. I feel like I'm still in like the stripping away phase. I think there is a lot of stripping away happening, but I'm not sure I've figured out what is emerging yet from this. So
But tell me what that means.
I don't even know. I just feel like I don't really know. I don't know. I just feel like I'm reevaluating a lot of things in my life. It has thrown a lot into question in my relationships, in my work life, because my old job that was urgent care became COVID care, and now we're never going to go back to what it was. The hospitals rejiggered everything. There's just a lot in flux, and I still feel it's all in flux. And so I do think it's a good thing that stripping away, even though it's hard. Even in the same way that I would say, not that I would ever want a chronic illness, but I think the stripping away or the vulnerability that comes with that can be a good thing, and that it makes us stronger. It is sort of, and I do think we go into a pandemic like this with a different strength, having lived that. So this stripping away that I'm in, I can't really articulate it, but I just do think that things are shifting for me. I don't know what that means yet. I don't know how I'll come out of this. I still feel like I'm at the stripped down phase. I'm not making sense. Someone else talk.
No, it's like a sculptor's doing,
Yeah,
their work on you, and it's not done yet.
Not done yet. But I do think it's a good process. It's not easy. It's hard. I wouldn't have wanted this pandemic, but it does call a lot into question, and maybe that stirs the pot up in a way that is useful. I don't know.
Kyle and Jessica, do you have any relationship with what Annie's just said?
Yeah, for sure. I think it has gotten us to reevaluate a lot in our lives, and a lot that is important to me. My Instagram, for instance, is a product of COVID, and it's me wanting to be vulnerable and share all this and be my best self, try to exercise and share this with other people navigating similar circumstances. So yeah, there's been some good that's come from COVID. I met all y'all, and I'm super thankful for that. So
I
yeah,
met all
Elizabeth,
y'all. I love that. I met all y'all. I
I
love
love
a
it.
Southern boy, okay?
I love it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you, you mentioned part of your anxiety is your disconnect from your social circle, and you used
Yeah, and like
Instagram.
Elizabeth was saying, Zoom has been so great. It's just a new kind of communication. Things have shifted. We just have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm curious what again, when we finally get to that place where things are a little bit less scary in the world and we have more freedoms out in the world. I don't want to say eradicated, because who knows. How do you think, what do you think will remain in terms of your social connectivity? Because you had to shift, right? So what do you want to carry forward?
All of my good habits that I've created. I've gotten back on tending to my health. I've gotten back in school. I've gotten a new relationship. All this during the pandemic. So I'm hoping that continues.
Jessica, how about you?
What was the idea posed again? I'm sorry.
Well, for Kyle, I asked because he said one of his anxiety things was being cut off from his regular social group. And relationships with people. And so he had to make a pivot and shift that way. And I asked how, once things become a little bit less scary and we have more freedom out in the world, what will remain from that having to pivot. And so I'm just curious as to if there's anything that you pivoted from that you will carry with you.
You know, I don't know, because I came back to my hometown because my health crashed, like from MS. And that was a huge pivot, and it still is, because I'm outside of the majority, like 99.9% of my communities live outside, if not across the country, outside of Davis and or across the country. So that has been a huge pivot that I'm still adjusting to. I definitely am I definitely am learning, again, living during this moment in history feels familiar. Unfortunately, it's not comfortable at all, but it doesn't, I don't know if there's anything new that I've learned per se in this moment that I can use to move forward. But then again, there's plenty of lessons of just continuing to survive and deal with things as a young adult, and hopefully continue to move forward as much as I can. Hopefully that answers the question.
How about
That's great.
have any of you heard, I've heard in the chronic illness community, the fear of the pandemic being over, because there's a safety net and a somewhat sense of control in a chaotic body when we don't have to interact with the world as much. We don't have to cancel our plans. We don't have to, I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think about that?
That's interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Actually,
interesting. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Heard that. I won't tell all her stuff, even though she does. She's so great. And a friend of mine from graduate school, actually, I won't get on that. I have friends who live with serious health issues who very much are like, this actually isn't so bad. This actually could really help me potentially maintain my health. It doesn't make me feel any safer, though, personally. It makes me feel even more lonely. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But I understand what I see, where it's coming from, and how it could be a yay for some folks in the community.
Well, it's definitely like a slower pace of life.
Yeah.
At least like I know, just like having young kids, like their activities slowed down, and that like made my life easier, and that's nice. I also feel like for me, like maybe it's fed my social anxiety a little. Like I always have had a little, like I'm someone who's pretty social, but I also am someone who's like, I'm good. I don't need to. I see someone and I'm like, I don't want to talk to that person, and I run and hide. I'm that person. So there, like, I just can't do it right now. And so there is a comfort that I have found in this quiet time of COVID of not having to do as many things socially. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, that it sort of feeds that, because I think it's good for me to get over that. But I do have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I have less envy because people aren't traveling. So I feel like, oh, their lifestyle's more like my lifestyle. And now I don't have to look at their travel pictures so much, which I like.
See, that's funny because I see people travel. I know not everyone's traveling, because what is everyone, you know? But I see people going places and I'm like, I want to go.
Yeah, me too.
But
I see that.
If I'm correct, Elizabeth, it sounds like you felt like it was a little bit more of a level playing field, maybe.
Yeah.
Something that they
Yes.
didn't want to have to do, but they had to do. I mean, especially when this first all hit, when everybody had to stay home, when
Right.
everybody so, because as you all know, you had your envy/jealousy episode several months back, and that was part of Elizabeth's frustration, as she was happy for her friends, but also really envious. And I think with COVID, she's been like, not haha, but a little bit like, well, maybe now I don't have to, you can relate, and I don't have to be so envious or jealous, for at least for a short period of time.
Yeah.
But I'm the only person I know who's gotten COVID. I'm so
Really?
blessed.
Wow.
I'm blessed
Wow.
to live in a community where people have not been hit by COVID
Yeah.
by luck.
Ugh.
Well, I do want to end, Annie, you heard me say it earlier when I introduced you about your book that's coming out in
Yes.
just a few weeks, which I'm very excited about. And, just as you all do here every month, you're sharing your own personal stories, and, it's not formal, right? It's not like formal essay or anything like that, but there is something really healing about being able to share your personal experiences. So Annie, I would love it if you would talk a little bit about the book that's coming out.
Okay. So, I mean, the book really came out of my personal story of being someone who's living with MS and also being a medical provider. So sort of seeing healthcare from both sides and what's wrong. And then my journey towards sort of learning how to integrate my diagnosis, and really how storytelling helped me to do that. And then connecting with a psychologist I work with very closely, who's taught me a ton about the social science research on the health benefits of storytelling. And there's a great deal of research out there about how we actually gain health benefits, physical and mental health benefits, from sharing our stories and also from listening to stories from others. So the book is sort of, I'd say, a mix of memoir / sort of guide to how do we do this. And so it's my story interwoven with what we do at the nonprofit that I run, Health Story Collaborative, which is to help people tell their stories. So we have a lot of narrative guides and tools to help people engage with their stories deeply. And I really do think that process of engaging with our stories is what makes us healthy and happy people. And so it's hard work. But I think doing that also connects us with others when we hear their stories. So that's what the book is. It's my story, but it's also sort of a lot of tools for helping people to do that with their own stories. But I'm very I'm very clear in the book, and I'll be very clear here that it's not like an easy fix solution, like do this and then you'll be healed. It's hard work, but it's sort of a guide of like, if you want to take on this work, here's what I did, and and I'm just doing it with all of you. I don't have any special secrets, but just it's my journey and what I've learned, and it's also what I've learned about the science. And so it's sharing a lot of the science too. So that's what it is.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that so much too. I know, Elizabeth, you want to say something, but I think we live in a culture that is looking for the magic bullet, one solution, just do this
For
and
sure.
your life will be great. You can fix everything
Hardware.
in 30 minutes a day. So I appreciate that disclaimer that you've made. And I think the more of those types of guidebooks that are out there is going to be actually more beneficial to society. That's my humble
And it's
opinion.
like, also, I'll say, like, it's ongoing, like you never stop, right? You always are retelling and rejiggering your story and moving forward and changing it. And so there's no like, there's no like end goal, but it's all towards health and healing and knowing ourselves, and it's ongoing.
I can't wait to read it.
It's
Me neither.
Elizabeth's in the book.
Very
Or
excited.
she is.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's all a day at a time. There are times I'm a superstar.
One day at a time.
Sometimes I feel like I'm that garbage pail. You know, it's just a day at a time.
Yeah, day at a time. I know I'm in trouble when I can't remember the title of my own book though, but I should
Yeah.
try to I should try to say it. The Healing Power of Storytelling.
You have to know the name of your
Using
own
personal
book.
narrative to navigate illness, trauma, and loss. I'm working on it. That was it.
Okay.
And I know how uncomfortable you are plugging your own stuff. So sorry to put you on the
It's all
spot.
good. No,
Do you
it's
feel
good.
like
Thank you.
I'm all full of, this book is full of shit some days? Do you feel that way? You
Oh, well, yeah,
try.
because you get so immersed in writing it, you're like, I can't even see clearly
Right,
anymore what I
right.
said. But hopefully, I mean, I take part in the fact that it's mostly a lot of other people's stories that are really inspirational. So it's not about me. Like your story. There's a lot of other people's stories that I
Right.
value in. Yeah.
We're all interesting. That's one thing I so want people to know. Our lives are really interesting.
Well, and I think
Right.
by doing this, I mean, you can't just say, hey, I'm interesting, watch me, listen to me. I think providing some insight, like a program like this, like Annie's book, so that people understand why you're
Right.
interesting. Right? We all have a story to tell. And on that note, after I saw Kyle give a nice, beautiful yawn, since I know it's late there,
Been a long day.
I'll look forward to hearing more stories next month. So
Yeah.
thanks, you guys. Thank you
Great to see everyone.
always. But thank you especially Annie and Kyle because it's so late. So
Oh no, we're good.
Yeah.
It's a joy to see all of you.